So good morning from my side. Thank you very much for joining Intuitive Industries Digitized. So next 30 minutes, I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview what we see in the industrial market in respect to digitization and how that changes the pace of some of our customers in respect to safety, in respect to productivity, and in respect to utilization of resources. And when starting off talking about the industry, let me see whether I can get this here to work. No. Yes, wonderful. It's working digitally. When we discuss this with customers and clients and partners, they're actually in an industry that has been very, very, very conservative over many years. We're actually seeing 2 or 3 real trends that are starting to transform the industry. So I start talking about the market, which many people are not so interested in. It's a big market of 100 billion euro, but it's growing again, and it's growing for our customers. So that's good. That hasn't happened in many years. But the 2 or 3 fundamental changes that we really see is the industrial Internet of Things that is changing things. While we are connecting factories and shop floors for many years already into PLCs or into process control systems, the ability that we have with the industrial Internet of Things is to collect much more data in a very easy and a very cost-effective way, and transporting them somewhere, which is not necessarily to the PLC or DCS control, so not to the edge controller, but directly to the cloud and process some of those data. So that's changing the industry quite a bit. The second thing that is changing the industry is what we call the end-to-end integration of software. Now, many people say, we've had CAD systems or 3D design tools for many, many years, and that's absolutely correct. And I would say, one would have the digital representation of a workpiece or of a process flow or of a factory. Now, but if you put these 2 things together, the IIoT and the digital representation, all of a sudden you move to what we call the digital twin. So you can actually bring the digital representation of your factory or of your workpiece or of your workflow. You can bring it to life, meaning in real time you use the data that's available in the factory, on the shop floor, and move, so to say, the digital representation into a digital twin. And with that you have a lot of different possibilities in respect to simulating things that are going on, or in respect to trying out things, going into a variety of checks and balances before you do actually the real implementation. So that's changing the industry quite a bit. And then, of course, in particular, when working with Schneider Electric is our huge ecosystem of partners with whom we're working out there to really make this happen. Now, that's what's changing the market. Now, many of our customers, they say, "Oh my goodness, this is a little bit over my head, and how can you help us in implementing what you're seeing out there to be successful in my digital transformation?" So one of the things we've worked at with the team is say, what are some of the success factors that we can help our customers with to be successful in their digital journey? And there are really 4 simple things that I'd like to talk to you about today. And it's about domain expertise in a solid architecture and obviously a platform that we're using, while we want to make sure that it's very easy to get started for our customers. Many of our customers are small and medium-sized enterprises. They've made their experience in implementing ERP systems many years ago, where they had big hopes of productivity. And after they've been done with the implementation, they had a huge amount of cost. They had additional resources that they needed to hire, and they were wondering where the productivity went. And that's what we want to not have happen when we go into the digital journey. And that's why I said it's got to be easy to get started, and it's got to be cost effective for our customers. And one needs to have a small menu where you can pick small solutions and not be overwhelmed by large packages. As we get more sophisticated, of course, we want to talk about the integration of industrial software. That's what I meant earlier. Bring the digital representation to life, create the digital twin and the digital thread, to use the words that are used in the industry. And then, of course, I'll talk about the ecosystem of partners that's really necessary when you go onto the digitization journey, because you want to have partners that are geographically close to you. You want to have partners that have domain expertise that can support you, that you don't need to always rely on the larger corporation to support you. Now, talking about domain expertise, architecture, and a successful platform, I just want to make sure that all of you know that you're in the right floor of the hotel. So you got to hear EcoStruxure from me, and you will. And it's an ideal architecture that we're using. Many of our customers would say, well, we've done this for many years. We've had products, we've had drives, we've had control systems and sensors that we connected to an edge control, a PLC system or a DCS system or a motion controller. So what's really new? In that respect, I would say nothing is new, but we've added communication means to it. And some of those connected products can bring data that go directly to the applications and analytics level, where we also will talk about today about the AVEVA software that we have generated, so to say, by the merge of the Schneider Electric's industrial software and AVEVA. And it's an end-to-end connection that we have from the shop floor all the way into the design offices. And Jean-Pascal has mentioned it earlier. The second discussion we're having is on cybersecurity. I'm not going to be talking about cybersecurity, but I invite you, when you go into our exhibition, we have some specialists there that can talk to you about cyber and what we're doing with many of our customers to also make the OT space, so the shop floor, how to make that a safe place. Sometimes we tend to forget that we only worry about the IT in our factories and in our plants. But the OT space is also very, very important, and sometimes one has legacy systems there where 15, 20 years ago nobody worried about cyber. Now, so what are some of the new things we're showing here? Two things, of course, our drive family, Altiva, with a very enlarged portfolio, something to really look at. And when you're in a process industry and you need to worry about the safety system, then the Tricon CX is the newly introduced safety system that is much smaller in footprint, but it plugs into the existing cabinet that you may have today, and it's the first system on the planet that has a TÜV certification for safety and for cybersecurity. The advantage is that your testing time goes down by roughly 40% if you deploy that, and that should result in roughly, our estimate, 30% cost reduction in the implementation of the safety system. So a couple of new products also that fit very well into the architecture, something important to talk about. Now, I think the architecture is clear. You've heard this before. I think you can be certain about our domain expertise in many of the vertical markets or end markets where we are active. So our people can speak oil and gas, our people can speak mining, our people can speak water or wastewater or specific applications, consumer packaged goods and so forth, which is important to understand the end customer's process to be able to optimize it. Now, how is it how you want to get started easily? And I said, there's like an a la carte menu. You pick some of the advisors, and you don't need to rip and replace all the all the installations that you have. I'll talk about an example in the machinery industry, and we'll pick one of the advisors here, which is the machine advisor. So let's assume you're a machine builder, and the same can be true if you're owner of a plant or several plants, and you want to optimize certain areas of it. But if you're a machine builder and you want to go into the digital transformation, one of the things many of our OEM customers worry about is how can I utilize or digitize the customer experience of my end customer. And the first real problem that they have is that most of the machines that they have sold to their end customers, and many of our customers, they build hundreds or thousands of machines a year, they are not connected. They have paper files on where the machine is installed, paper files on what kind of software versions are implemented in the field, what kind of hardware equipment is in the cabinet. And one of the challenges is, or the first challenge is, how can we connect those machines that are out there and retrieve data and utilize this data to generate value. So we've come up with a simple application that's called Track. The Track allows the customer to connect the machinery to, and the OEM customer knows all of a sudden if all machines are connected, what's the installed base that he has globally, where are the machines used, what kind of equipment is in there, what kind of software versions are in there. And so the connection is the most important thing to then start off with digital services. I mean, it's the same with your mobile phone. If you remember, I don't know, just 10 years back, your mobile phone could only do telephones. And then when the first smartphone came up, the idea of the smartphone was to connect you. There were no applications on the first smartphone. But once you were connected, then you could plug in more and more applications. You can pick from the menu, so to say, and download applications. It's the same idea here. So we want to track the machineries, and then the customers can go into further applications. So the next one then would be monitor. Monitor means we're trying to get real-time data from those machineries, and we run analytics on those to be able to predict, for example, if a certain axis would fail or if the machinery's productivity goes down. And with that, you can go into preventive maintenance services and so forth. So first, connect. Secondly, start monitoring what's going on, and then get into services that you're selling. And once you're in those services, obviously, sometimes it's about fixing also the machinery. And the more complicated the machines are, and I'll show you a video in a second of a machinery that has 70 servo axes. Imagine you sell this machine to a customer that's several thousand kilometers away, and you want to help them service. So why not using augmented reality with the help of your iPhone or your iPad or somebody else's pad, and you take a picture of the machinery, and then you can virtually open the cabinet, you can virtually look at documentation, and you can start supporting the service engineer that's out there on site to start fixing the machinery. And that's what we've done here with our customer Somic. And let's hear what the CEO has to say. Oh, no,
这一台呢是我们2018年盛源机械最新的四面炮3轴跳刀的一个机种。这个系统呢，施耐德也提供了 EcoStructure Machine Advisor 机械云，提供给业主端最及时的一个监控与生产速度流程的一个高效率化值。
我是盛源公司总经理张超杰。这次在台北展，我们用施耐德 EcoStructure Machine， 这是一个未来的趋势。我是坚决相信，未来带着很多方面可以加以运用，在预警，在刀具使用。 IoT 方面，使你之前能预知如何处理这事情，在云端监控。
Oh, of course, it was not Somic, it was somebody else. I forgot that I'm in Asia. So, of course, we have an Asian example. And it's not only one customer, but many of those examples. But you've seen, how with a simple with a simple menu, easy to get started, implement an application at the customer, and generate value in that respect. Now, if we want to become more sophisticated and we go into some of our end user installations, so into plants, be it in oil and gas or petrochemical, chemical, mining, or food and beverage, pharmaceutical, we want to worry about an end-to-end process that allows us to get the most out of a factory that's being built over its lifetime. And you've seen this picture earlier already from Jean-Pascal. When we're talking about the life cycle of a plant, if it's in the chemical space, for example, or in the oil and gas downstream, we easily talk 30, 40 years of a lifetime of a plant. Usually, 1/3 of the expenses are done when the plant is built, and here we easily talk about €1 billion of investment. But then over the lifetime, the next 30 years, you probably spend another $2 billion on just operational expenditures. And the question is, how can we overall reduce this amount of money to the end customer and reduce the risk for them in the operations? And the idea is, of course, to generate a digital twin that starts from process design, where you worry about the temperatures and the pressures of the raw materials that you put in, how you bring them chemically together in the plant that you're about to build. And while you operate the plant, you also want to make sure, of course, that you can optimize that over time, either on the shop floor or in the digital representation. That was the idea when we reverse merged our industrial software with AVEVA. And if we look a little bit more in detail into this process that you see here, from process design all the way to planning, scheduling, and the operation of the plant, there are a lot of different steps in there. And in the past, for many of those steps, you would have specialty software packages that many of our customers would buy. For example, for process design, they could use SimSci, or there are other companies that are out there named after one American state, and forgot their name. And what happened is, while there were a lot of software packages, many times people would need to go out and print out pieces of paper that would give information. They would use these pieces of paper to sit in front of the next software package, and then starting to input what they had on paper into the next software package. And in particular, when talking about process design and then building a plant, a lot of manual interfaces in there. And that kept us away from having a unified engineering system. And the idea is, of course, that we want to generate that. And I'll show you in a minute, and you can have a look also in our exhibition, in the first versions on how we're bringing AVEVA and Schneider Electric software packages together to eliminate some of those interfaces and have a flawless system that allows process design, engineering, building, operations to be all done in one system very flawlessly. That has, of course, a lot of advantages in engineering and also the digital life cycle. And I'll show you how this was done in the past. We've talked about the process and simulation, which you would worry about, and then come up with a so-called PDF document, a PFD document, so the process and flow diagram. And with the process and flow diagram, you start either working on a process and instrumentation or piping and instrumentation document that you would later on use when you program your DCS system, and you also use that when you go into the engineering system. That was all beautiful and a lot of handwork in there, but what was not possible is that you had a feedback loop. When you did some changes in your 3D design tool, you weren't able to go back into your process automation or process simulation tool. And we're in the process of creating this feedback. This will allow you then to simultaneously, so to say, simulate a plant. And if you want to do some changes, you can go back to your process design and change them in the process design. That's a big advantage. I'll talk about this in a minute and show you an example. The second big advantage is since Aviva and Schneider Electric are so closely working together, we can now automatically configure and build out of the process and instrumentation diagram. We can automatically configure and build the DCS code. That will allow us to really have roughly 7.5, and it seems to be a very precise number here, anyway, in the neighborhood of 5 to 8% savings in respect to the project cost, because things are automatically generated. That reduces the speed and the number of engineering hours that need to go in. But it also allows us, when we want to do budgetary quotations, to do this much more precise and much more quicker. And it will also help the EPC, of course, in the loop to do that. So these are some clear advantages that are happening. The second, probably most fundamental change is, in the past, when you would do a process design and then building the plant, and digitally first, and then you do it physically, you would find out, and the EPC hands over to the end user, you would find out that all your documentation is outdated. As built is not as designed, is not as handed over, and is not as operated. So with that, all the work that was put into the digital representation of the plant is basically useless, because the real plant looks different to the digital model. Now, with the feedback loop that we have, that I've showed you earlier, we'll be able to have a digital representation that is always up to date, because it's connected to the real world. It's as designed, it's as constructed, it's as operated, and is as modified. And once you have a fully digital representation of the real plant, then you can start doing a couple of pretty cool things, like, for example, this one. And these are some pictures of the first merge of some software packages from the Heritage Aviva and the Heritage Schneider software package. So you're looking here at a 3D design of a plant that is in operation. And you see here that one pump is coming up, and in this pump we have a pressure and a pressure or temperature problem indicated here on the red on the left-hand side of the chart. Now, what would usually happen is you would probably send somebody on site and see what's going on. He's going to come back, and then you figure out what kind of changes you would do. You do the changes and see whether they work. Now, in the digital world, what you do is you go into your engineering system. You have this temperature alarm with Wonderware. We just used a couple of software names, packages names that some of you may know. You would go into Aviva Engage and acknowledge what kind of mistake is there. Then after that, you go into your simulation tool and check what would happen if I were to change the set point of a certain parameter. What would happen to the plant? And once you've done that, and you say, this actually looks pretty good, you automatically generate the work permit, which you need in a petrochemical or an oil and gas plant for the service engineer to actually go and see and do the modification. And once that's done, you schedule it so that also the maintenance folks actually go on their way. And then in the digital twin, all of that is already reflected, the ongoing activity. So somebody who sits there, he can actually follow what's going on. We're talking multiple departments, and we're talking probably also, physical distance between the people that are involved. Now, after that, in this changing here to black, because we have now on-site activity. The person is going to go on-site, inspects and executes the maintenance that had been simulated before. And once that's done, he will change the set point in the control system that we had simulated much earlier. And work order is automatically completed with the handheld that he has. The next thing that happens is we can verify the outcome of all the changes that have been done in the digital system. So you go back and you see the temperature alarm has just gone away in this simple example. Now, if you want to have a look at that, how that looks in real time, it's over in the exhibition center in the software. So that's a simple example, but it's of course much more sophisticated as we're bringing these software packages together and flawlessly interoperate. And you know, there are of course examples out there where the EcoStruxure solutions are deployed. This is the world's largest refinery that we have in India with Reliance that has been built over the last 20 years in 3 stages. And why am I saying it's important that this was done over the last 20 years? Because some of the software packages were not available 20 years ago, but they are available now, and they can still be plugged in, and they can still, you know, augment the functionality that we had implemented earlier. And that's the beauty of the concept of EcoStruxure, that you can also, as technology evolves, you plug in new packages that come up. And we're talking about a massive site here with more than 300,000 points of connection. So the end-to-end industrial engineering software will really bring the digital twin to life in the process and hybrid world for Schneider at the moment. That's where we are, and you'll surely, as we go on, we'll also see how that evolves into more of the discrete world. Now, obviously, as I said earlier, there are many of our customers that are small and medium-sized companies that we need to help, and we also need to have people very close to them that can help them on the daily basis. And that's why the ecosystem of partners that also Jean-Pascal mentioned earlier in his keynote speech is of fundamental importance for us. It's fundamental to serve the end customer, and it is also fundamental because the partners for us, we want them to grow because their success is also our success. Now, the open architecture helps, of course, and in this digital world, my recommendation to all partners is to engage, because it's a kind of a self-accelerating model for them to grow, and it works very simple. There is such a huge installed base out there, and it's also a huge installed base of unconnected. Unconnected does not mean it's not connected in the factory, but maybe on top of the factory or several factories together, or incremental services that I've shown you the menu earlier deployed. And so that's the base really of the success. And that has allowed us to bring a lot of developers out there. And there are in the industrial space several thousand software developers at our system integrators, and of course also our own, but at our system integrators, that can develop applications and functionalities that are specific for the customer, for the individual application. So a real customization that's possible, very close to the customer. And obviously, with more developers, we'll also have more applications on the market that are available on a marketplace. A marketplace, from that perspective, is also new. In the past, the system integrator would have done the functionality, and the functionality was for one customer, and he would have difficulties to sell it to somebody else who's maybe thousands of kilometers away. Now, if you're able to bring the application on the marketplace, new business relationships are developing that haven't been there before, again accelerating what's going on and creating value for our customers. And if there's value in the digital transformation, then of course more assets will be connected. And if more assets are connected, we said we can bring also the digital twin into the equation. With that also, of course, creating even more connectivity at the end of the day. So it's a nice model for us to work together with our partners and our customers to create a value at the end of the day. And an example that I've brought here is from one of our Indian system integrators that had used our control system and then also developed some functionality on the Aviva SciTech Historian functionality. And the reason there are no connected products from us is this was an established site, but it was not possible with the control system that was there. So the control system was taken out from somebody else and replaced with our control system and the software. So a production, a delivery of the production system 66% faster than estimated, and really future-proof, integrated with the ERP system to be able to be more productive. Now, to sum it up, really 4 success factors, easy success factors, in my opinion, to lead the digital transformation of our customers and make them successful, be it a small or medium-sized enterprise, or be it a large corporation in that respect. So, so with that, I'll leave you with those 4 success factors and a couple of things you want to see when you go to the exhibition. If you haven't, cyber, Aviva, and then of course our new offers in respect to safety system and drives, and of course a lot of other things out there. So thank you very much for your attention, and wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you.